Mike Dunleavy just opened the exit door for Stephen Curry, and Mike Dunleavy did it with a smile on Mike Dunleavy's face, on the record, to a reporter, in August, when nobody even asked about a trade. Read that again. The general manager of the Golden State Warriors was asked one simple question about Stephen Curry's contract extension, and instead of answering the extension question, Mike Dunleavy voluntarily told the world that if Stephen Curry ever wants out, Golden State will pack Stephen Curry's bags. That is not a slip of the tongue. That is not a misquote. That is a message. And by the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly who that message was meant for, because it was not meant for the fans. Stay locked in, because what is hiding underneath this quote is bigger than a trade rumor. This is about the beginning of the end of the greatest era the Bay Area has ever seen, and the front office just told on itself. Here is exactly what happened. Anthony Slater, one of the most plugged-in reporters covering the Warriors, sat down with Mike Dunleavy to talk about the state of the franchise. The topic on the table was the extension. At the end of this month, Stephen Curry becomes eligible to sign a 2-year extension that would keep Stephen Curry in the Bay deep into the back half of this decade. A softball question. A layup. All Mike Dunleavy had to say was, "We love Steph, Steph is a Warrior for life, next question." That is what a normal general manager says. That is what 99 out of 100 front office executives say when the face of the franchise comes up. Instead, Mike Dunleavy said this. Mike Dunleavy said the front office is pretty confident Stephen Curry will finish Stephen Curry's career with the Warriors. Fine so far. Then Mike Dunleavy kept talking. Mike Dunleavy said, ultimately, it is his call, his decision. Whether that is allowing the contract to run out and moving on, or if Stephen Curry comes to the front office and wants to be moved, Joe and Mike Dunleavy will talk it through. The Warriors would not love it, but Stephen Curry has earned the right to do what Stephen Curry wants. Stop. Freeze it right there. Nobody asked about a trade request. Nobody asked about free agency. Nobody asked about Stephen Curry letting the contract run out. Anthony Slater asked about an extension, and the general manager of the Golden State Warriors answered by describing, in detail, the 2 exact scenarios in which Stephen Curry leaves the franchise. Unprompted. On purpose. On the record. Now here is the part that should make every single Warriors fan sit up straight. Front offices do not talk like this by accident. These are trained media professionals. Every syllable is weighed. Every phrase is rehearsed. When a general manager goes off script, it is almost never off script. There is an old rule in NBA circles: if a front office executive says something that makes you raise an eyebrow, the eyebrow was supposed to be raised. The question is never whether the message was intentional. The question is who the message was for. So let us run through the possibilities, because this is where the story gets dark. Possibility number 1, the message was for Stephen Curry. Think about what Mike Dunleavy actually communicated. If Stephen Curry wants to leave, the Warriors will not fight it. The Warriors will honor the request. The Warriors will send Stephen Curry wherever Stephen Curry wants to go. Strip away the corporate politeness and what you have is a general manager publicly handing the keys to the franchise's entire future to a 37-year-old superstar and saying, the door is unlocked whenever you want it. Why would a front office do that? Because the front office knows something the public does not. Maybe the front office has looked at the roster, looked at the payroll, looked at the Western Conference, and quietly concluded that the window is closed. Maybe the front office would almost prefer a clean break, a graceful exit, a hero's farewell, rather than watching Stephen Curry waste the final chapters of a legendary career carrying a play-in roster. But no general manager can say that out loud. Saying that out loud is franchise suicide. So instead, you say the quiet part in a soft voice. You plant the seed. You let Stephen Curry hear it. You let Stephen Curry's camp hear it. And you wait. Possibility number 2, the message was for the other 29 teams. This is the one nobody is talking about, and this is the angle that changes everything. When a general manager publicly says, "We would honor a trade request," every front office in the league hears something very specific. Every contender hears, "The price of poker just got posted." Boston heard it. Denver heard it. Houston heard it. Charlotte heard it. Mike Dunleavy did not just answer a question. Mike Dunleavy put a flashing sign over Chase Center that reads, "Inquire within." You do not say those words in August unless you are comfortable with the entire league picking up the phone in February. Possibility number 3, and this is the coldest one, the message was for the fans. A soft launch. A pressure release valve. If the day ever comes when Stephen Curry asks out, the front office can point back to this exact interview and say, "We told you, we always said it was his call, we prepared you for this." That is not conspiracy thinking. That is crisis communication 101. You get the bad news into the bloodstream early, in small doses, so the eventual headline does not kill the host. Whichever possibility is true, and honestly all three can be true at once, one thing is undeniable. The Warriors were asked about an extension and answered with an exit strategy. That has never happened before in the Stephen Curry era. Not once in 16 years has anyone with decision-making power in that building publicly entertained the idea of Stephen Curry in another jersey. Until now. Now, to be fair, Mike Dunleavy did wrap the whole thing in reassurance. Mike Dunleavy said Stephen Curry has not requested a trade. Mike Dunleavy said the message has always been to stay with the Warriors. Mike Dunleavy said there are two things the front office is confident about: Stephen Curry really wants to win, and Stephen Curry wants to finish Stephen Curry's career as a Warrior. Mike Dunleavy said that is not changing on August 29th, at the start of the season, in the middle of the season, or at the end of next season. Beautiful words. Comforting words. And completely undercut by the 30 seconds that came before them. Because here is the logical problem that nobody in that room pressed on. If everything is sunshine, if the extension is coming, if Stephen Curry is finishing as a Warrior and nothing is changing tomorrow or next month or next year, then why is the trade request scenario living rent-free in the general manager's head? Why is that door even being described? You do not discuss fire exits at a birthday party unless somebody in the building smells smoke. And the timing makes it worse. Stephen Curry is eligible for that 2-year extension at the end of this month. That is the single most important piece of leverage in this entire story, and almost nobody is connecting the dots. If Stephen Curry signs the extension, the door closes. Locked. Deadbolt. Stephen Curry becomes untradeable in any practical sense, the farewell tour gets scheduled for 3 years from now, and this whole conversation evaporates. But if the end of the month comes and goes and that extension is not signed, every single word Mike Dunleavy just said transforms from a hypothetical into a countdown clock. Watch that date. Circle August 29th. The extension is the tell. Stephen Curry signing means the dynasty dies at home in bed. Stephen Curry not signing means the dynasty dies on the road, chasing one more ring in someone else's colors. Now let us talk about the elephant wearing number 30 in the room. What would Stephen Curry even be chasing? Look at the roster. Look at what Golden State is actually rolling out. The Warriors currently have an open roster spot, and do you know who is drawing legitimate interest from Golden State to fill it, according to Mark Stein and Jake Fisher? Georges Niang. Brandon Williams. And on a Bleacher Report live stream, Dallin Terry got mentioned as a potential target. That is the list. A stretch big who did not play last season. A guard nobody signed by mid-August despite averaging 13 a game. And a wing whose on-court identity remains a genuine mystery to most of the league. One of those three names might be the only external free agent signing of the entire Warriors offseason. In the same week the general manager is casually discussing trade scenarios for the greatest shooter who ever lived, the front office is bargain bin shopping for the 15th roster spot. Connect those dots. If you were Stephen Curry, watching the front office assemble Georges Niang while Mike Dunleavy describes your exit door on the record, what exactly is keeping you? And then there is Joe Lacob, because no Warriors story is complete without the owner stepping on a rake in public. This week, Joe Lacob looked at the Jonathan Kuminga situation, a situation so botched that the 7th overall pick is currently unemployed, unsigned, unwanted, out of the league entirely, and Joe Lacob said, with a straight face, that Jonathan Kuminga was not a mistake. Joe Lacob said there were 7th picks that are out of the league. Joe, that is the point. Yours is one of them. This is the same decision-maker who refused to trade Jonathan Kuminga for OG Anunoby. Refused for Alex Caruso. Refused for Pascal Siakam. Refused for Lauri Markkanen. The rest of the building reportedly wanted Franz Wagner on draft night and got overruled. Non-basketball people making basketball decisions, and the bill always comes due. Why does this matter for Stephen Curry? Because every one of those fumbled trades was supposed to be the move that reloaded the roster around Stephen Curry's final prime years. The assets are gone. The window dressing is gone. And now the front office is talking about honoring trade requests. The pattern is not subtle. So if the unthinkable happens, where does Stephen Curry go? Because Mike Dunleavy made one thing crystal clear, the Warriors would let Stephen Curry pick. The Warriors would honor the request and send Stephen Curry to the best possible situation. That is a king's ransom of a concession, and it means we can actually map the board. Boston is the obvious one, and Boston is not just speculation. D'Angelo Russell, a former Warrior who shared that locker room, went on record saying Russell would love to see Stephen Curry go to Boston. Russell said Stephen Curry needs that type of help around him now, and then asked the question that cuts to the bone, who is taking the load off Stephen Curry in Golden State? Sit with that. A former teammate, someone who watched Stephen Curry work every single day, looked at the current roster and concluded the answer is nobody. Picture the fit. Stephen Curry next to Jason Tatum, with Boston's arsenal of tradable first-round picks, potentially 3, 4, even 5 of them depending on the Jaylen Brown return, plus swaps, plus movable contracts like Peyton Pritchard and Sam Hauser. The Celtics could build the most compelling package in the league without gutting a championship core. Stephen Curry in green, hunting ring number 5 with the franchise's most hated rival. It sounds like blasphemy. It also sounds like the most logical basketball fit on the board. Denver is the fantasy that makes your brain short-circuit. Stephen Curry and Nikola Jokic. The greatest shooter in history and the greatest passer in history, running two-man actions that would break defensive basketball as a concept. A package built around Jamal Murray plus a mountain of picks could theoretically get it done. Every basketball fan on earth should be praying for the simulation where that partnership becomes real, because the league has never seen anything close to it. Charlotte is the heartstring play. Stephen Curry going home, finishing the career where the family name was built, in front of the people who watched Stephen Curry grow up. Beautiful story. Terrible basketball decision. Charlotte is not winning anything that matters in the next 3 years, and if Stephen Curry leaves the Bay, it will be for a ring, not for nostalgia. Houston is the dark horse with the deepest war chest. The Rockets have the assets to build a package Golden State cannot refuse, the young core to contend immediately, and the cap flexibility to make the math sing. The only question is whether Stephen Curry could stomach wearing the jersey of the franchise Stephen Curry spent a decade tormenting. Some bridges stay burned. And hovering over all of it is the detail that should terrify Dub Nation more than any destination, the part where this got said at all. There is a saying in this league, and it has never been wrong. Once something like this gets spoken into existence, it never really gets unspoken. Kevin Durant heard the whispers before anyone believed them. Damian Lillard was a trailblazer for life, until one day the door was unlocked and Lillard walked through it. The first step of every superstar exit in modern NBA history is a front office executive saying something just like this, in a calm voice, in the dog days of August, when everyone is too sleepy to notice. The trade request never comes out of nowhere. The trade request comes out of interviews exactly like this one. Here is what the loyalists will say, and the loyalists have a case. Stephen Curry is not wired like the others. Stephen Curry built the house. For championships, 2 MVPs, the unanimous one, a finals MVP that took way too long to arrive, and a jersey that hangs in the Chase Center rafters the second the career ends. The Warriors have never once wavered publicly on Stephen Curry before this week, and even now, the stated belief inside the building is that Stephen Curry retires a Warrior. Mike Dunleavy said it plainly. The confidence is real. The relationship is real. The love is real. But love has never stopped a ring chase. Ray Allen loved Seattle. Patrick Ewing loved New York. Hakeem Olajuwon loved Houston, and Hakeem still finished in a Toronto Raptors jersey that looked wrong in every single photograph. The cruelest truth in professional sports is that the franchise icons are the ones who get the gentle exit conversation, because the franchise owes the icon the chance to chase one more banner while the body still cooperates. Stephen Curry has earned that right. Mike Dunleavy just spent a full minute explaining that exact right to a reporter, unprompted, in an answer about an extension. So now we wait, and the calendar is the whole ballgame. August 29th. Extension eligible. If Stephen Curry signs, this video becomes a museum piece, a weird little footnote from a strange week in August, and Dub Nation exhales for another 2 years. If Stephen Curry does not sign, every game this season becomes a referendum. Every losing streak becomes a headline. Every road trip to Boston, Denver, Houston, becomes a scouting mission. And every quote out of the front office gets reread with a magnifying glass, because now we know they are willing to say the quiet part out loud. The most loyal superstar of this generation just watched the general manager describe the exit door, publicly, politely, with a smile. Maybe it was honesty. Maybe it was strategy. Maybe it was the first domino wearing a press pass. But the door is described now. The door exists now. And once a door like that exists in the minds of a fan base, a front office, and a 37-year-old legend with one more ring to chase, doors like that tend to get walked through. Dub Nation, the floor is yours. Does Stephen Curry retire a Warrior, or does the greatest shooter ever finish the story in someone else's colors? Type ride for retire a Warrior, or type chase if you think the 5th ring hunt leads somewhere new, and tell everyone which team should be terrified. If this breakdown earned a spot on the screen, hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and ring the bell, because the second that extension deadline passes, the next video is coming the same night. The door is unlocked. Keep watching to see who walks through it. The silence from the Curry camp right now is the loudest sound in the league. Every contender's front office just added one more name to the whiteboard. History says the warning always arrives before the earthquake. Watch the calendar, watch the quotes, and watch the door.